In August 2021, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, I decided that I needed to get out for a bit. I had just bought my first camper van and wanted to test it out. So I decided to go to Slovenia. I got Koda all strapped into his new fancy seat that allows him to look outside, stick his nose to the vents for the aircon and still be somewhat comfortable. On our first night, we slept on the side of a mountain in Austria with an amazing view. Unfortunately, in the end, after a little run-in with a creepy local, I had to move the camper away from the main road for safety reasons. But I found a spot just off the road and there were even 2 other campers there. The next morning, we got up early, took a few panoramic shots and hit the road again. Like I said, somewhat comfortable. Our intended destination for the day was Bled, but it was packed. So we moved on and drove a little deeper into the Triglav National Park, where we found a campsite near Lake Bochen instead. Lake Bochen is the younger but bigger brother of Lake Bled. It's situated between mountains, and to be honest, I was glad we didn't find a place to stay near Bled. I mean, look at these views. The next morning, we drove around the lake and began our hike to the first waterfall of this trip, called Soča. We relaxed by the water for a bit and then drove past both lakes and headed north to enter the Triglav National Park from that direction. The next morning, which happened to be my birthday, we got up early as usual to avoid the heat and the crowds and went for another hike. Koda showed off his rock climbing skills, but in the end we couldn't go on any further because it just got too steep for him. So we didn't make it all the way to Soča, the source of the Soča river, but we got close at least. Then we made our way further south to explore the Great Soča Gorge, which was just stunning. On the way to our next campsite, we stopped at another waterfall called Slatvirje, but it was super crowded again and the water was freezing. We finally made it to a campsite right by the Soča river. It was super hot, and as my camper doesn't have an awning yet, we tried to find some shade under the table. The water always looks super inviting, and as you can see, there are people out there that can somehow stand the cold water, but I'm definitely not one of them. My family had made sure I wouldn't feel forgotten on my birthday, so they sent me gifts before I left, including a cake, which I took on the trip and opened on the day. Another morning, another hike, and another waterfall. This time within walking distance from the campsite. Can you believe the color of the water? Again, thanks to leaving early, we were alone on the whole hike. Later on, we drove to Tolmin Gorge and went on yet another hike. You'd think that I would get sick of seeing water, waterfalls and rocks, but nope. And after our hike, we went to the coast to see the ocean and finally go for a swim in not freezing water. After a sweaty night, we set out on another early morning hike along the cliffs to get to Moon Bay. When it got too hot, we climbed up the cliff and went back to the camper. So instead of staying another night, we made our way back to Lake Borkin. In the morning, we managed to find another gorge to explore. And that's what it's like when you miss the early bird time slot. Fortunately, this was when we came back from the gorge and not when we arrived. And then we had one last beach/lake session before heading back home the following day with one more stopover in Austria.